right now, and I want to introduce what we've gone through a leadership change here at S&T, and we have a new provost. We greet our new provost. He comes from Montana State, Dr. Robert Marley, and I'm going to let him introduce our keynote speaker.
It's always nice to get an applause when they haven't done anything yet. and I say that in all sincerity because I've only been here, this is literally marks my second month on the job. So I haven't really done much, but I thank you for that applause. Really, I know I'm just here to segue into the one person that you really want to hear from this morning. But just a quick comment that I know I didn't have a chance, or some of you may not have heard a little bit about S&T, that if you've not been here before. I'm very excited to become part of this team with Chancellor Schrader, who could not join us this morning, and so I'm filling in for her, but she sends her best wishes, and welcome you to S&T for your second day here for this conference. And let me just say, what an exciting conference this is, and I've just come to understand what you're doing, and 20 representatives from 20 institutions in 10 different states. That's quite an impressive accomplishment for our team, and it shows your interest in this area and what has allowed us to gain this kind of sponsorship, as well as the ability to attract good keynote speakers like we have this morning. And yes, I thank those sponsors, especially in our leadership team, for arranging a great evening last night. My wife and I had an opportunity to stop by and see the fireworks and see the 80s band. And the good news is, I know most of you at least knew those songs. A lot of our students weren't alive when those songs were popular, and my wife and I could figure out why no one was dancing at first. And then they kind of got into it, except for you guys. We saw you. We have pictures that will be on the website soon. So, in all seriousness, that was a fun evening, and we look forward to doing it again. And then I guess one other thing I want to mention about our leadership team. I've been able to be part of a process by which we've reintroduced new leaders to this campus as well. We have two new deans, one of the College of Engineering and Computing, and a dean of the College of Art, Science, and Business. This institution, as you may know, is about 75% engineering and computing students. But our business students and our arts and our social science students are very engaged in the business, if you will, of technology and infrastructure. And so this is an exciting place to be, an exciting time to be. So without further ado, I want to make sure I introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Suskin. And visiting with Dr. Suskin just a few minutes ago before breakfast, told me he's been with NSF now for 18 years and has been in different divisions and different positions, including European posts. So it's a great deal of experience and perspective that he brings with him this morning. And I know in his vision of advanced cyber infrastructure, there's a number of topics that I'm very interested in here. I know you are as well. And he has assured me that he wants to spend as much time answering some of your questions, and then after the official sessions to visit with you, hear what you're doing and how he may be able to collaborate with you. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Suskin to join us.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the introduction, and I really am honored to be here. I don't usually get to be a keynote speaker. I think that's really special, and I appreciate it. I was saying that, I've never been good with geography. I'm a theoretical atomic physicist by training. And I didn't even know where Missouri was, to tell you the truth. And so I knew about St. Louis because I've read Mark Twain and stuff. And so I knew Missouri was out here. But I didn't quite know where it was. And I was actually embarrassed because I was wondering, I had to go west, right, from St. Louis to get here. And I thought, well, what's the next state west of Missouri? I didn't know. So you'll see a map I'll show you later. It turns out it's Kansas, which was a bit of a surprise to me. I do know something about Kansas because I'm a Civil War buff, and there was but I never learned much about Missouri. So I'm also, for that reason, I'm very glad to be here. When one of the gigs I had in NSF is I was head of the NSF Europe office in Paris for 3 years. So I was stationed in Paris. But because the office was responsible for all of Europe, I traveled all over the place trying to make connections between European scientists and U.S. scientists. So I went to Moldova and Azerbaijan, and Bulgaria, and Lithuania, and Latvia. And, you know, the United States is a vast place. And it's very interesting to travel across this country and see how places are different. So I'm glad to be here. It's an honor for me to be here. And they asked me for the title of my talk. I didn't quite know what to say. So the title is true. I'm going to talk to you about NSF and the future of cyber infrastructure, but I could have called it the cyber infrastructure of the future and you, because as I've been saying, in particular to your CIO, NSF, my division anyway, really needs the cooperation and the help and the interaction of universities just like this one. I think in particular like this one, to tell you the truth of what I've been learning, in order to do our job properly. Exactly how we make that work, I'm not sure. I don't have the formula, but I know that I need the help of the people in this room and others to make my division be all that it can be. So please keep that in mind, that I'm here asking for something. I'm here making a pitch to you all so that we can do our job better. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, just briefly, and I didn't run this talk for time, but I don't think it's going to be more than about half an hour, and so there's plenty of time for questions afterwards. And I will hang around until I have to leave to go back to St. Louis to catch my plane to D.C., and I think I have to be out here by noon. So, NSF supports fundamental research, as you know. Our budget's on the order of $7 billion, 94% of which goes out the door to fund research at universities. 2,000 funded institutions, 11,000 awards funded annually, so forth. I think you know what we do at NSF. Our organization, I put this up here so to help you identify where my division sits in the organization. The little red circles, by the way, are people that have either left NSF or were acting and been replaced by other people. So, and this is at the highest levels of the foundation. So there's our new director, Dr. Francis Shkodova, and Cora Merritt, our deputy, has left in August. And several of the assistant directors were either acting or had left and are in the process of being replaced. And over here, the second column from the left is the computer sciences directorate, where my division lies. We're waiting on a new assistant director as well. We used to be a separate office, cyber infrastructure. We were moved by the previous director of NSF. We were moved into size, but we still have, in our mission, is a requirement to work across the entire foundation, and I will come back to this. We have to work with all the sciences in order to procure, produce, create the cyber infrastructure that's needed for those sciences. Our budget request is actually 7.3 billion for 2015, and in computer sciences director we're on $900 million total across the entire directorate. This is just an interesting little graphic that shows the difference in if you ask how much of academic, that is university basic research, is supported in selected fields, what fraction of money they get comes from NSF, you see that it ranges from about 40% in the engineering disciplines to, again, close to 90% in science. So there's a vast difference of where people are getting their money, so to speak, in the different disciplines. So this is the mission of the directorate in which we sit, and you'll see in the first bullet that they talk about advancing the development and use of cyber infrastructure, which is what my division does. Drilling down just a little bit in the organization, you see here's size and here's advanced cyber infrastructure. My boss, Irene Falford, would have liked to be here, but couldn't, and asked me to come, and I'm actually glad she did. So we support the acquisition, development, and provision of state-of-the-art cyber infrastructure resources, tools, and services. That's people. Essential to the conduct of 21st century science and engineering, research, and education. And we break those down. We actually have clusters in the office with program officers in those clusters, corresponding to data, high-performance computing, networking with cybersecurity and software. And there's also a section for learning and workforce development, but that also cuts across the entire division. I'll talk a little bit more about how our division works, but that's important, an important aspect of my pitch. But in red, you see across all disciplines. So remember, across all disciplines, across all disciplines, across all disciplines. And one of the questions is, how do you do that? How do you get the information you need to support basic cyber infrastructure that supports all the different disciplines have different needs. Different disciplines are at different places with respect to their ability to use cyber infrastructure. What do we do about that as we move forward in developing cyber infrastructure? I pose that as a question because we don't know the answer. And one of the things I'm asking help with is, how do we garner the information we need to know what to spend our money on? And as I was saying to Greg, that's not something people are used to being asked by NSF quite so directly. Usually people are saying, how do we get money from you, NSF? And I'm asking you to help us figure out what kind of solicitation do we need to put on the street in order to help scientists do what they need to do. You see that this little oval is supposed to indicate, and it does, where the Division of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure feels its bailiwick is in this quadrant, where Pastor's quadrant is in the upper right. And so we intersect with that as well as with the more applied quadrant, where Edison is the representative. I will admit that I have a special affinity for Bohr's quadrant because theoretical atomic physics is what I was trained in, and Bohr, of course, is one of my heroes. As a matter of fact, in those discussions with Einstein about quantum mechanics, Bohr was always right and Einstein was always wrong. And Einstein wasn't wrong a lot. He was wrong when he argued with Bohr. So, just to go through the different pieces that we do, and again, I'm very open to questions when this is done, but we view software as infrastructure, and that includes both application software and system software. So it's the applications that scientists develop and use, and the stack software, and even software, software-defined networks and so forth. But there are certain questions that we have. People don't necessarily get credit for developing software at universities. You don't get tenure for it. So what do we do about that? And you'll really hear, if you listen, you'll hear that a lot of this talk that I'm giving is about people. In a certain sense, I think the technology will take care of itself. I mean, it will progress. But what do we do about the people that provide the services and create some of this software? How do we make sure that this enterprise is sustainable? I don't know the answer to that question either, but I know the universities are going to play a major role in that, one way or another. So should there be more career positions for these people? I happen to think the answer is yes, but what does that look like? Is it career positions at large facilities, at the large computer centers, or is it a dispersed network of people? Again, these are questions. How do we validate, verify software so it can be used, developed here, but used across the wide swath of the scientific community? And again, different. Where should we put our emphasis? Okay. And in the division of advanced cyber infrastructure, we have a lot of flexibility as to where we put our money. Our budget is on the order of $210 million a year. And unlike most places at NSF, we work by annual solicitation. So every year we issue solicitations. Now sometimes they look similar to a solicitation we issued the year before, but very often they're different. And one of the things we're looking for all the time is progress and change where appropriate. And this boils down to the allocation of that $210 million across the division. What are we going to spend our money on this year? Is a question we ask every time. Data. So data's huge these days, and there are all kinds of data is harder than software because you've got to keep it. I mean, the policy issues with regard to data strike me a little difficult. So, what do we keep? How long do we keep it? Who has access to it? Who will make the policies regarding sharing, security, privacy? I'm telling you, it has to be the community. It cannot be some disembodied group, certainly not in Washington, that's going to address. It has to be the scientists based on their needs, but there are different needs. So how do we approach data? And I'm talking about all data, not just big data, little data, fast data, heterogeneous data, data analytics. What are how? Right? We have to support computing. We have to support data. We have to support software. We have to support networking. What is the relative importance of these things to the science that's being done and needed? Put my slide. Yeah. Software. We are trying to move forward in both the data and software arenas through to get to a place in the software arena where we have what we call software institutes, which will be large repositories of validated and verified software that need to be maintained that are used by a large swath of the community. The NSF would like to start these off. They're going to be $5 to $10 million over 5 years. This is our picture anyway. We're not there yet. We have some conceptualization work we've made, but we don't have any institutes yet. And the same sort of progression is going forward with respect to data. In our minds, we envision a kind of national data infrastructure that will probably be a federation of data repositories. But again, you come back to all the difficult questions of policy, shared views, security, so on and so on. But I wanted to make it clear that the Division of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure has in mind this goal of these large repositories for software and data that will be accessible across the entire research community, from the large universities to the small. This is an indication of the work work we do in the international arena with international networking on the 100 gigabit connections we're trying to make between the U.S. and other countries. And there's a lot of work to be done here. As you can see, Africa, the entire continent of Africa is almost left out, except for South Africa. So there's, this is about connecting scientists up. We're very lucky to have a new program officer in cybersecurity, which is getting more and more important as time goes on in everything, in computing and software and data and in networking. So I want to dwell on this a little bit. This is how I learned that Canvas is on the other side. But this program, which was started by a really creative and brilliant program officer, Kevin Thompson, in my division, was designed to increase the capacity of universities on the networking side. So it started out with, it was basically a solicitation addressed to major universities. And then the second round was designed to help smaller universities in the vicinity of these large universities into the system. And I think it was a brilliant idea. And he actually, 2.5 years ago, came into our office with the then head of OCI group on the office assignment. And, we diverted $20 million to this program because it looked so valuable. That's just an example of what we're able to do on short notice in the division of advanced cyber infrastructure. But anyway, the more important thing about this chart here, this graphic, is that this has been a fantastic success. There are 130 awards in force right now. There'll be another round of this. And I think this may be paradigmatic of how we're going to work in the future in other areas. Software, data, computing. This distributed model may be exactly the direction we need to head. I don't know that for sure. But so in this model, the campuses play heavily into the future of cyber infrastructure. The cyber infrastructure it's going to be here on the campuses. Because remember, what we care most about is getting, in a sense, the cycles, whatever it is, software, data, computing, but getting the cycles to the end user. That's what it's all about. And bringing users that are not currently engaged in using this cyber infrastructure into the mix. Okay? And I have a feeling a lot of this is going to happen on the level of the campus. That remains to be seen. But places like this one that really want to emphasize a campus cyber infrastructure plan, especially one that hooks them into other academic institutions in the surrounding area, I think fits into the model of what the future looks like. But because I don't know, it's kind of an experiment, and we need universities that are willing to be part of that experiment. We've got the money, you all have to have the innovation. Of course, we're responsible for high-performance computing, but I want to say that NSF's take on high-performance computing is not like, say, the Department of Energy. So, the U.S. was recently beaten in high-performance computing on the LINTAC measure, so the easiest thing to do is, disregard the LINTAC measure. And that's really but it's honestly how we're looking at it from the perspective of my division, namely, it's not about having the fastest machine, whatever that means. It's about providing the scientific community with the high-performance computing they need to do cutting-edge research, and that's all. And again, the universities, they play a very important role in the future of whatever the model of high-performance computing looks like. There's an awful lot of good work being done on open science tree. And that has nothing to do with with big iron situated someplace in Illinois, for instance. Not that those are going to go away, but I think we need to add something more distributed into the mix. I just want to mention that we are very concerned with learning and workforce development because that has to do with people that make all of this possible, that keep all of this going, that allow the working scientists to have access to the cyber infrastructure that we're talking about. And we're basically, in our division, we're basically responsible to two groups: the cyber infrastructure experts that design, create, implement new cutting-edge cyber infrastructure, and all the scientists that want and need to use this cyber infrastructure. So when we talk about learning and workforce development, we're also asking the question, how do we help working scientists make use of the cyber infrastructure that we're making available? And but of course, we're also concerned with the cyber infrastructure themselves. And an awful lot of those people are on soft money all over the place, and which may be the way of the future anyway. But I just saw, I don't know if it's USA Today, but the number of temporary places, so-called, at universities has gone way up with respect to the number of permanent places, and that's all over. But how do we make this sustainable? Okay, it cannot be that all of the money that supports these people is going to come from the National Science Foundation. That's not a sustainable model. But then too, how do we train the working scientists? And this is critical, how do we bring the two groups together? The cyber infrastructure experts can go off on their own and design wonderful things that the scientific community might not want, might not need, and might never use. So the only way to make this cost effective is to have those two groups of people communicate. How do we do that? Again, I wonder if the universities might not be a place that makes that kind of communication possible. So there's a little example of what I'm talking about going on at the National Science Foundation. It's been going on for a little over 2 years now. It's called EarthCube. And the stated goal of EarthCube is within a decade, so there's about 8 years left, within a decade to put on the ground the cyber infrastructure necessary to allow ocean scientists, earth scientists, and atmospheric scientists to work together to address global scientific problems as a whole. Now, that's a noble goal, and if you're me, if you're a physicist, you say, well, that should be easy. I mean, they're all geoscientists. Well, I learned very quickly, because OCI, as it was then, the Office of Cyber Infrastructure, went in on this together with the Geosciences Director, co-funding stuff, working together, staff time. Earth scientists don't talk to ocean scientists. I guess they have no reason to, unless they're talking about Iceland, which is when the Great Atlantic Rift comes above the ocean. And it was surprising to me, the lack of communication among those groups of scientists. So this really was an interesting experiment in sort of the cultural aspects. And let me tell you, those are important. The cultural aspects of getting a bunch of scientists to come together to design a cyber infrastructure for a very clear purpose. Well, how do you interrogate a community of 200,000 scientists about what cyber infrastructure NSF should be spending its money on? You can bring 150 people into a room, but are they the right 150 people? And what about the 200,000, because that's how many are left, approximately, that don't get in the room? So there are governance issues. And it's almost a political thing, if you think about it. How do you organize this whole affair? And Soviet system. Soviet is just a council. A Soviet is a council. And the Soviet system as designed, we don't believe it worked particularly well in the example we know about, but the Soviet system was designed so that there would be a local Soviet, a local council that cared about local issues. And that council would send a representative to the next level Soviet. And there would be a representative from a regional Soviet. And from the regional Soviet on up until you reach the Supreme Soviet. Okay? And that's how you carry the message from the outlying areas, from everywhere, to the top about what needs to be done across the entire Soviet Union. Okay, the instantiation we saw didn't appear to work very well, but the idea has always stuck in my head because I want to know how we get the information from the scientists who do their work to the National Science Foundation about what needs to be done. And it occurred to me that the universities may be able to serve as Soviets, if I may, and help us bring this information up to the National Science Foundation. Now, I'm very willing to work with individual universities to see what can be done in terms of this communication. So if there's a place that has, say, or wants to have a campus cyber infrastructure plan that also is cognizant of all these people issues, cultural issues, cross-science issues, all of them, and also is willing to be kind of a focal point for other academic institutions in the vicinity. I think there's room for that between an institution and my division in the National Science Foundation. So that's actually my pitch, is if this university is interested in that, I think we should talk. But EarthCube, go read anything about EarthCube, and you'll see all these issues are right there. And the most difficult thing we're asking the scientists to do is around governance. There's a governance group, and it's having the hardest time of any group. So I want to say again, I think the technology will, in some sense, take care of itself, or at least we know how to do that. But these cultural, policy, governance, political issues, NSF is not used to dealing with, and we need some help. Okay, so my undergraduate major at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill was classics. My father was a classics professor there. I grew up in Chapel Hill. And I was walking with some friends downtown in D.C., and we passed the Academy of Sciences building. This is the one with the big statue of Albert Einstein. This is my last slide. The big statue of Albert Einstein is sitting outside that children love to climb on. And I noticed that there was Greek written at the top of the south face of this Academy of Sciences building. So I wrote it down. This was in the mid-90s. I brought it back, and at the time there was a new thing called the Perseus Project out of Tufts University, which was a digital collection of the corpus of classical literature. Really cool. But it's new. And I mean, the internet is pretty new. But it had a search function. So this word I've underlined in red, sunacroexomenon, is you plug it into the search function. That word doesn't occur much in the corpus of classical literature. Boom! It took me, I wouldn't have been able to find it in my million years, but it took me Aristotle's metaphysics. And I've underlined in blue some words in Greek that show that you know more Greek than you think you do. Theoria, which is a view, or the English word theory. Semeion is where you get semiotics and semiology. It's a sign. Axios is worthy as an axiom. Pontos is the root is pon, which is all Pan-African. Legein is the verbal form of the Greek word logos, beginning was the word, logos. Physios is physics. Micron is small. Megatron is great. And Aristotle was no slouch, by the way. He was one of the greatest scientists we had. What this says is, the study of truth is, remember this is on the National Academy of Sciences built. The study of truth is in one sense difficult. Truth is alaphnes. The study of truth is in one sense difficult and another easy. This is shown by the fact that whereas no one person can obtain an adequate grasp of it, that is the truth, we cannot all fail in the attempt. Each thinker makes some statement about the natural world, and as an individual contributes little or nothing to the inquiry. But a combination of all conjectures results in something considerable. As a lover of classical civilization, it's not unexpected to me that you might refer to something 2,500 years old to help envision the future. But this, to me, is, I'm fairly passionate about cyber infrastructure because I believe that this is exactly what it's going to make possible in ways that were never possible before. People are going to be able, they're going to be forced to, but they're going to be able to work together in ways we've never seen before. And nature doesn't care. Nature's problems do not care about our divisions into disciplinary silos. So the solutions to nature's problems are going to be done together as scientists, as researchers, and cyber infrastructure is going to make that possible in ways I've never seen before. So thank you very much. I'm also going to hang around a while, so it can be done afterwards as well. If you just want to call me.
You asked about this sort of input ideas. You mentioned about the two groups of people, cyber infrastructure experts, scientists, and engineers. And it seems to me that if NSF, because NSF, the main thing is NSF is so influential because NSF has money, billions of dollars, and versus the, those professional societies, we tell people what to do, people don't normally want to listen because there's no space there. So if NSF seems to me that if you put out, the solicitations of proposals and asking people to put together, and you will receive tons of proposals with lots of ideas, and that might be one way to approach. Because if you don't do that, if you simply just ask for inputs, you may receive some, but probably not that many.
I know exactly what you're talking about. One of our problems is we don't necessarily want to receive tons of proposals with lots of good ideas because we're already overworked. The program managers at NSF are suffering. The workload's gone up and the staffing hasn't. And especially with the cross-cutting things that are so necessary for the future that take up extra time. I will admit, you're right. You were at NSF, but I'm kind of looking for a shortcut, a more direct way, which I believe it's still going to be competitive. But I think for cyber infrastructure, I've thought for several years now, we need to narrow our focus in a way and make use of the people that we know how to do this somehow, and still keep it competitive. But if we just throw the doors open, I'm suspicious about our being able to make that work the best effect. And we have to move quickly here. Cyber infrastructure changes so quickly that NSF has to be able to be responsive in the same time scale. And that's another thing we're not really used to. So I don't know what to tell you. Yes, I think the way NSF traditionally has worked, it's not going to be enough in this particular case. Go ahead and follow.
I think actually, because I'm working on manufacturing, we have some ideas. in terms of this cyber infrastructure, because cyber infrastructure usually just computers communicating with computers. But now it's so important to be able to connect to, say, manufacturing, for example, because right now there's a lot of interest now in intelligent manufacturing systems.
Cyber physical systems.
All right, cyber physical systems for manufacturing. So I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah.
So when you will have some time to stay over here. And of course, you can also get into some of the areas, energy systems, transportation. But we are very big in manufacturing right here, so I'm kind of looking into talking about it.
You mentioned that you wanted to be able to branch out from those facilities that you showed the map and try to get out there. Is that your then just mentioned your idea was to work with people you already know that know this thing? Are those not sort of contradictory goals?
Yes, they're contradictory goals. But I am legion, as Walt Whitman said. No, there is a tension there, and I feel it all the time, especially in cyber infrastructure, because there's a cadre of people that really know what they're doing, and we need to use those people. The question is, how do we expand this? And part of what I'm talking about is information. So the people who know how to do the cyber infrastructure may be the people who know how to do the cyber infrastructure. But what input are we getting about what those people need to be doing? That's part of the expansion that I'm talking about. And I mean, it just occurred to me that perhaps, I don't quite know what I'm talking about, perhaps some of that communication could go on at the university level and somehow be brought to the NSF. And we have to do it programmatically. I'm not saying send me an email about how much money you need. The point is to come up with a programmatic way, a way by solicitation, to help you do what we want you to do, what we need you to do. I don't know if I'm being clear. I'm trying.
To give me a bit of objectivity, I'm not a particle physicist, I'm not a high-energy physicist, but I would suggest that community has been remarkable in their ability to create governing structures that are not only national but international. Has NSF looked at that community to see lessons that could be learned there? I can't imagine them having, I can imagine having trouble, but what they've pulled off is really remarkable.
Right. And I don't know if it really is the Higgs boson or not. I mean, it looks like it. But, that's a tough business they're in. What they're looking at is extremely complicated, and what they see is modeling. So we can be skeptical a little while longer. But I hope it is Higgs boson. But that's exactly right. Their network may well be an example that we can make use of. And in fact, it's because of them that I'm wondering about the efficacy of something like Open Science Grid. Right? I mean, millions and millions and millions of hours of compute time are being done on Open Science Grid. So, one question I have is, if a scientist wants to go use one of our major facilities, Stampede, Blue Water, our state-of-the-art computing facilities, does that scientist need that? Could that be done on some expanded form of Open Science Grid? I'm not a computer science or computer infrastructure person, so I can't answer that question. But I think it's a reasonable question, and yes, I think I agree with you. What the high energy physics community has done is pretty impressive. But there are examples from physics which are not so clear. A lot of these groups, like LIGO, looking for gravitational waves, I mean, they're political and economic issues. In some sense, they would rather build and have their own dedicated computer facilities, because then that goes in their budget. There's an overhead attached to that budget. I mean, let's be frank about this. And so, and that's the old model. They buy their computer. And I'm asking, well, can they use common computational facilities? And in discussions with the physics program officers, the answer could well be yes. but there's some pushback against moving in that direction. So there are all kinds of interesting things going on there. But what I'm looking for, as you're talking about, is models we can use to make sure that the cycles and the facilities, the data, the networking capabilities are getting where they need to be. So scientists across the country can do what they need to do. Okay, can form their own groups, can have the capacity.
Yeah, Mark, we got to talk about this briefly when you got here, but this is intriguing that you're looking for some sort of networking capability that can pull together universities, and I think it's unique in what has happened with university the size of S&T here. And of course, for me, I'm new, coming after a hiatus with a liberal arts institution, non-research, coming back to research. And what I've found is, this is just an example, and maybe it's why RTD has grown, but we're a smaller institution. We have all of the critical, scientific and engineering disciplines, but we don't have the critical mass. And yet, so we reach out to our partners in the surrounding states because we have to, and they are fabulous with their research centers, their computation centers, and that, of course, I think we can reach out too because we're reaching out at the support level. I would hope that scientists and researchers collaborate just as well, but I got a feeling that underlying support network, we get to know their universities in a different way. And I was just wondering, it sounded like this was kind of unique when you took a look at this conference that we really did have 20 universities and 10 states represented. And this isn't a big conference. This is intentional for networking and partnerships. And there's lots of deals being made by certain researchers in this room as, I want to hook up with your specific research or whatever. So just interested to hear what you've seen elsewhere and where this model might fit in.
Well, I'll admit to you that this idea of the focus on universities is fairly new to me. Half a year or something that it dawned on me that, and it's partly a result of that networking program, just the way it works. That and the last time the first time I ever expressed this idea was a visit to Temple University a 3 months ago or something like that, where I talked to the provost there. Actually, he was fairly new in his job, and they really were focusing on cyber infrastructure at the campus level. I mean, they really were. And I don't know, a little light went off in my head. And I said, well, I wonder if there could be a relationship between what Kimball's trying to do and what we're trying to do in the Division of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure. And we always ask for a campus cyber infrastructure plan for places, but it's kind of pro forma. And here I was talking to people that really had a plan. I mean, they were going to do this no matter what, okay, with whatever resources they had. So again, I was sort of looking from the perspective of NSFs exploiting what they were trying to do because it was in line with a sort of a larger scheme. It's like a little test bed of this idea that some of what we're trying to accomplish in our division can be done at the campus level. And then there could be, again, through competition, through a competitive mechanism, there could be potentially support for this kind of symbiotic development of how, and again, I think what matters here is how do you get the resources to the end user. But that means undergraduate students too. I mean, that means 3D printers in the library. You should see what Temple was putting in its new library complex. It's not like anything I ever saw as an undergraduate in a library. It was just amazing what these students had 24 hours a day. You know, if they had their student ID, and you get past the turnstiles, but they had accessible to them. So, I don't know. Yes, I think a place like this that does what you do and is putting the emphasis that you are on the cyber infrastructure aspects of things and wants to be connected regionally, yes, I think I think we ought to talk, but I'm not the one you should talk to in the end. I'm the one who knows the least about this in my entire division. Okay? Even my boss is. But there are program officers who know exactly what I'm thinking, and they can talk on a much finer level about programmatic ideas and that kind of thing. And we may even have programs going on now that would be of interest to you.
So I'd like to make a comment and kudo. I heard you earlier comment on the CCNIE project and the IIEs, and I would like to say that at Kansas State University, where I'm the research computing guy as well as a professor in computer science, it has made a phenomenal difference, and it's really unclogging the bottlenecks between the researchers and the data.
I appreciate that because it shows two things. One, we really do care. I'm not just flapping my gums up here. And two, some of this stuff can be effective.
It's fantastic, and it enabled us to replace a bunch of buildings that were connected at as slow as 100 megabits per second with 10 gigabit connectivity, including people we don't normally think of, like the social scientists and some of the others. And so that's been a great thing on your campus. So thank you.
Thank you.
The comment that I have, and I've been happily bragging about it to my friends here, so I figured you're here and I'd brag about it to you too. Was the latest capacity solicitation from the NSF saying, okay, what are the next big machines going to be and that sort of thing. And what I find with my researchers as we support them with our local cluster, which is largely NSF funded, indirectly or directly, as well as the Exceed resources. And I'm on the Exceed Campus Champions National Leadership Team, I'm a campus champion. I see this, is that when our scientists are making requests to the Exceed centers, their allocation requests are getting chopped in half if they're getting funded at all. And our local machine has a backlog. I think this morning it was 4,000 jobs deep. And what we're finding is that our scientists don't necessarily need the really cool accelerators and everything else. What they really need are just normal processors with a big hunk of memory attached. And so what's happening is our average job is running 48 gigabytes per core that we're seeing, and this just seems to be going up fairly exponentially. And yet the requests coming from the National Science Foundation are, hey, go with accelerators, and our code isn't on accelerators and won't be for a while. And we go out and Blacklight is going away as a big memory machine, and OSG doesn't have much in the way of 48 gigabytes per core. It's more like 1 gigabyte per core.
Right.
And so I think balancing capability and capacity, where I feel like the capability is really cool when they're coming out, but I'm worried about the capacity for the 80 to 90% of the users out there that are just running normal stuff, but they need to run it to do their research.
Right. And as you know, capability is sexy. Congress likes capability. And Congress is the one who decides how much money we get. So this isn't, I don't want to paint the picture as rosier than it is. But in a certain sense, okay, capability matters because you have to press the envelope forward. There's that, too. Someone needs to do that. What NSF's role in that is fortunately under discussion right now at a very high level. What should the federal government be doing as a whole about capability? What will come of that? But at least we're talking about it. And but I've got to tell you that, at least for me, capacity is a very important issue. I mean, what are they telling me? I want to increase demand. They're already screaming at us that we can't meet the demand. It's twice as much demand as we can meet. Of course, I figure you guys are real smart. You probably ask for twice what you need, figure you have. Maybe not. But capacity is, I don't know, it's where it's at to me. we need to address the needs, and as I said, I want more people demanding use of the computational facilities that they actually need. Because if you have a new tool in your toolbox, you may address different types of research problems because you got that tool. That's what I really want. So that happened to me, actually. My dissertation was on the application of group theory to atomic structure. Well, you couldn't do that, 30 years before I was in graduate school because the group theory hadn't made the connection. That was a tool that I was able to use to do my kind of research. Cyber infrastructure is all about tools to do research. So I think what you bring up is, to me, it's one of the most important aspects. But I just wanted to admit that there are political forces, exigencies, that don't allow us necessarily to do what we think makes no sense at any given time, but we'll try. So this kind of information is very important, and you have credentials. You're a campus champion, you've seen this, you know this. When you're here, not just at campus, so you get around. It's that kind of information that I'd like for us to be paying attention to as we strategize about where we go in the future.
I think I made my trip you can hear.
Ain't so easy.
Not really, I'm going to set the stage.